welcome back to a very special edition of Chats from the Blog Cabin. I'm Melissa, as you know, but today I'm joined by four amazing gentlemen. I know three of them in person and one of them I know online because they're coming from all over the country, or two of them are actually local to me. But I'm so thankful that they're here to talk about race. The women's panel went so well. I just felt like we needed to do the men's panel and get the male version of it. And I also am going to do one about biracial relationships too, because I think that is huge as well. So we'll start off with Julius. Why don't you introduce yourself?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Melissa, for having me on with this wonderful cast of men. Right. I also want to thank your viewers for chiming in today, and I hope you all enjoy the conversation that we are about to have right now. My name is Julius James. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. Um, I was a professional soccer player for the last 11 plus years. I played in the United States of America in the MLS, NASL, USL, and MPSL. And I played professionally in Trinidad and Tobago also. I went to college over here. I was fortunate enough to get a full ride to be educated at the University of Connecticut. And after graduation, I applied my trade here, and I've been a philanthropic athlete my whole life, and I'm just very proud to be here. And now I'm working as a coach with the new MLS team, the Inter Miami CF professional MLS team, the David Beckham team down in South Florida there. And I'm just really, really blessed to be here, Melissa, and I appreciate the opportunity that you're giving us right now on the platform.
Hey, Josiah, you're up next.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Josiah Alipate. I'm 35 years old, coming to you from today from Scottsdale, Arizona. I am a health and business coach. That's what I do for a living. But my biggest calling is in youth ministry. So I've lived here in Scottsdale, Arizona since 2017, and have enjoyed my time. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Okay, Mr. Weeks, I can't call him Daniel. I'm sorry, because he taught my daughter 7th grade, so I can't call him Daniel.
Well, you just took my introduction away. I was your daughter's 7th grade math teacher. My name is Daniel Weeks. I'm 36 years old. I've been married 14 years. We have 6 beautiful kids. Not something that I talk about a whole lot, because I don't want it to ever feel like I'm trying to qualify myself to speak about race. But we have an interracial family. We have 2 black children, and since my wife and I have been married, we've had 9 total children, and from Mexican origin, black children, and then white children as well. And so that doesn't make me an expert on what it's like to be black. In fact, it makes me nothing. It's just part of my story. And when you hear me talk, I think sometimes it does shed a little bit of a different perspective on things, on what it means to be white and have children that are not white. But it does not make me an expert. And I am a pastor at Bethel Church in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And I too, Josiah, I'm a pastor, but I love students, and that's probably my passion. And have a lot of experience working with young men who have been in trouble with the legal system, trying to help them navigate it and not get trapped. by stupid felonies that they do not deserve. And my wife and I also live on a small farm, and we run a wedding venue business. And yeah, thankful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mac, I think your wife actually volunteered you to do this. Am I correct?
I was absolutely voluntold, yes.
Voluntold.
So tell us a little about yourself.
First, thank you for allowing me the opportunity. But yes, I am a motivational and keynote speaker. I've been doing that for roughly about 10 years now. I also am a mental health practitioner. So I assist a lot of people, a lot of young people especially, with the realities that they have, the challenges, to help them identify with the world around them, including family. Also, I serve, I'm from Goldsboro, so I serve my leadership team and, my incredible pastors, Pastor Terry and Lady Juliet Jones at the City Church of Goldsboro. I'm a part of the family there, and I'm born and raised right here in Goldsboro. So again, so glad to be a part of the conversation tonight.
Yeah, because I think this conversation is very important to have because, once we sit down and we learn from each other, that's how we can actually learn to make this country better. Because for instance, I don't know what you guys have going on in your life, and you don't know what I have going on in my life, but I do know from being married to a Mexican how prejudice is taken for him and for my daughters, because my daughters are half Mexican, half white, so it's kind of hard to actually tell them, okay, I know what you're going through, but I don't really know what they're going through. So I want to kind of step into your shoes tonight. So the first thing I want to talk about is, have you ever had to deal with racism in your life? I know you have, but is there one particular thing in your life that's really stood out to you that you can remember? Anybody jump in and ask the question. I answer the question, I mean.
I'll go first. With my job that I have as a mental health practitioner, I've dealt with a young person who didn't really understand what they were saying, but they knew enough to know if that they have heard it before, and so they used the word nigger, and it was a part of a joke for him. He wanted to inform me or enlighten me about a joke, and in having to work with that young gentleman, I took no personal offense to it, but it came from somewhere. The idea for that to even be okay, or something that he has heard in conversation, bothered me. He did not come up with this on his own, and so having to figure out how to deal with that from this young white kid that I was having to work with 3 or 4 times a week, and spend roughly 30 minutes to an hour with him in his home or out in the community with him. And that wasn't long ago. That was recently, I would say within the last year. And having to have that conversation with his parents to let them know that I had a plan as to how I wanted to address or approach the conversation, and so that he could understand in the future, everybody's not going to be as nice as myself, and won't have as much tact in dealing with something like this. I could feel like any of the other people who have responded to it in a negative way, but I decided to deal with it with wisdom and with tact. So that was my experience.
Do you think that has to do with a lot of the mainstream music, that it's now just like it's in music all the time, so people just think it's okay to say that word?
I do agree. I feel that the music does add the it gives people, I guess, for lack of better terms, the permission, or they feel that it's okay because it's in something that's popular already.
Okay, who wants to jump in and answer the question now?
Well, I think the context of the comment many times is very clear how it's being used. He's exactly right. Music makes it feel like it's basically like calling somebody your buddy.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say that word.
Right.
But I think he's right. I mean, the context that it's used in many times, it is clearly meant as a racial slur. I mean, just to be honest with you, if any white people are watching, don't say that word. I mean, that's just in the code. You don't say that. And you might not mean anything by it, but it shows a certain level of oblivion to reality, thinking that you can just say it. Now, I teach my black children, you don't say that word. I mean, here's what it means, and that's not what black people are.
Yeah, for me, just kind of, I grew up in Northern California in the Bay Area, in a town called Vallejo, just outside of Oakland, and I grew up in a culture where we said that a lot. I did myself, and I remember specifically there was a bus driver who got real mad when he would always hear us say that, and he would tell us not to. And it wasn't until I actually started to inquire about where did it come from, what does it actually mean, and how do people take this particular word. And I think it boils down to, one, in many in many groupings we've normalized it. Like everyone said, we've normalized it where we think that it's okay. And then even further than that is that there's not been any accountability, especially that's why I got such a big passion for the youth, because for me as a young man growing up, I didn't know what it really meant. I thought it meant that's my homie, that's my boy, that's what I thought that it meant. But when I really actually take a look at it and take a look at the grand scope of it, I grew up in an area of the country where that's okay, but then there's other areas of the country where it's absolutely not, and it actually means what it means when they say it. And so, I had to take a step back and understand, man, the words that come out of my mouth, they actually mean something. Am I actually going to take time to put thoughtfulness behind what I'm saying? And is the person who I'm speaking to and communicating to going to receive the message the way that I intended it to? And so that's where I started to begin to start thinking, like, wow, like I've been saying a lot of things that I shouldn't be saying. But again, we've gotten to a point where when it's normalized and it's part of popular culture, things kind of the waters get muddy at that point.
Julius, do you have anything to add?
Concerning my experience, or concerning the word being used in culture? Well, I could just kind of go in a little bit with both sides. And well, for me, I grew up in a different country, and we would be impressed upon by the American culture a lot because, it's a bigger country that's close by and it's a first world country, right? So when I was not accustomed using it growing up, but when I came to college here is when I started to hear it more in dialogue. Before I would hear it in songs, but it wasn't part of my culture to say. And when I came over here, it was in the dialogue of most of the black athletes that I was around. And yeah, I started to use it, but it always felt a little uncomfortable for me. So I always understood kind of like with vibrations and with I don't know how, but I always felt like it wasn't right to use like how we use it, like how people use it. And as it pertains to the music, man, I really, really feel that, and no disrespect to anyone, that the music that is on the airways, the free music that is constantly pushed out, constantly there, it's just not educating our kids. It's not doing anything for society, and it's breaking down society, is demoralizing, is br- is dehumanizing women, is putting money on a pedestal, and it is giving us vernacular that, you know our kids our kids starting to pick up without even remember. Our children, they download stuff, they so now we have to teach them about rejecting stuff that they're not even paying attention to, because it's being played everywhere. So, that's my take on it, on the word being used. um I just feel like if we need to start a dialogue about it, like what um all the gentlemen inside there have been doing, and we need to start spreading the word more about how important it is to pay attention to what we hearing subconsciously, to what is being played, and what we put out.
Now, I have a question. This is actually coming from a Facebook status that really stood out for me a long time ago. Mr. Weeks wrote it, and it was one about when your youngest son was just a baby, and somebody was, or maybe a toddler, and somebody was asking, "Was he your son as well?" And that whole vernacular, the whole conversation that you had. What kind of conversation do you feel like you need to have with him as opposed to your other children because of the color of his skin?
Yeah, that's a good question. And what I try to tell people is that this is kind of tough to hear, so you might want to put your seatbelt in. Is and I don't know how much longer I'll say this because of my youngest son's age. My oldest son came to me in a little bit a different way. But the problem of adoption is a separate problem than racism. You don't solve racism by adopting a child that is not your color.
Mm-hmm.
When we decided that we were going to adopt, and I need to preface my comments with this, and I won't take long, but when we decided we were going to adopt, our heart was, where is the biggest need? And disproportionately, Black males disproportionately made up the majority of those kids that were in foster care. And when I say that that's hard to swallow, it's very difficult to swallow, but it's the truth. And so that's why we chose. A lot of people want to know, why did you adopt a kid wouldn't it have been easier just to adopt a kid who had your same skin color? That was where we felt like the Holy Spirit led us. And we wanted to make an impact in the area of greatest need. So yes, we've already started having, there's the adoption things that we have to discuss with him. The idea that he is being raised by people who are not biologically his. And he is 5 years old, and he already has questions. He wants to know, Mommy, why does your skin not look like mine? And my wife tells him, she says, baby, you had an amazing mommy who had beautiful brown skin, and she carried you in her belly. And while you were growing in her belly, you were growing in my heart. And that's kind of the age appropriate conversation that we're having with him now. When it comes to race, he is 5 years old. So we talk about it pretty freely at our table. I have some very opinionated older children who talk about these things. Our family has always been very interracial, so they've always been very aware of racism and racial tensions. But he is 5 years old, so we talk about things in an age appropriate way. But we also have a lot of Black friends, and we invite them over. We invite them to speak into his life on things that we can't speak of from personal experience. But at this stage, he's 5. But I won't forget my oldest wanting to date a girl that was white, and there were some things said by her family, and I learned real quick that wow, okay, this isn't gone, this isn't over. And I mean, at that point, it wasn't a race conversation; it was a dad to son conversation.
And the reason why I'm prefacing this is because Sunday I had one of my amazing friends on, and she was telling me about the conversations because she has 3 Black children, and she's a Black woman, a really proud Black woman, and she was telling me about the conversations she's had to have with them. It's the talk. That's the talk that she's scared about. It's not the sex talk. It's the talk of, okay, you can't put your hoodie up when you go into a store. You can't put your hands in your pockets when you go to the store. And so as parents, especially, I know, Josiah, I don't think you have a kids, right? Right? Shake your head. No kids, kids?
No kids.
No kids. But I know Mac has some, and I know Julius has some. So as parents, how do you go about having that conversation with your kids to show them that, you may look different on the outside, but we're all the same on the inside, and not let it get better.
I want to just clarify, and I know these guys can jump in on this, but we don't, our philosophy on parenting in general has never been to have this huge culminating talk. Mm-hmm. Like even the sex talk. I have kids that are 5 and 6, and we try to talk very normally about things on a regular basis. And so, I mean, no matter what talk you're having with your kids, I think it's important that you do it in age appropriate ways and you make these conversations normal so that you don't scare the crap out of your kids.
Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
I think the biggest thing for me, as I'm hearing everything, I'm just sitting here pondering, and with everything that's occurring, there's it makes me ask the question, what leads someone to a step into the role of somebody who is a racist? What would lead someone to that point is the question I'm in, and I would make the assumption that someone who's in that position, one, is not fully really understanding of the person that they're dealing with. They've taken the individual and placed them into the grouping of a social group. Okay. And from that standpoint, they then take a look at every individual that they come into contact with, and they place them into the grouping of that particular mindset in which they've adopted. And I think for me, the biggest thing of all of this is understanding that at the end of the day, white, black, brown, red, purple, whatever it is, that this issue is actually a symptom of a bigger issue. And the bigger issue, and this is from my standpoint and understanding, is that the bigger issue is an issue of sin in the world. Now, this is something that we don't talk about a lot. And I can sit here and tell you that I'm going to go and attack one particular symptom, rather than attacking the full root of the issue. You see, because let's say that this challenge is solved, and yet we have a million more to deal with, right? And so, and all of the issues are big. These are big things that we deal with. But at the end of the day, there is one issue that me, you, and everybody who's listening deals with, which is the depravity of man. And to be quite honest, for me, it starts there. My reconciliation with God. How can I be reconciled to my brother unless I've been reconciled to the one who created me? And so, from my standpoint and understanding that we've got to see that I kind of go by the issue isn't the issue. There's a bigger issue behind it, right? And so we've gotten into this point where we're dealing with all of these smaller symptoms that are actually not even smaller. They're not small. I don't want to say that they're small. They are very big. But if we miss the mark on understanding the bigger root of it all, then we don't get very far, you know. And so that's, for me, in my standpoint, that is what this was just popping off in my mind as we kind of talk about this.
Well, I know I will say, because I mentioned this in the women's conversation, that I used to say that my girls didn't see color, but then I didn't realize until someone actually had that conversation with me, because I was talking about, they of course they see your color, but the way I phrased it made it sound like I was a racist. What I was really trying to say, and I've rephrased it, and the girls have rephrased it, is that we may see your color, and it may, that you're black, you're white, but we don't see. Let me see. We don't let that define how we treat you. And so once somebody told me that when you say you don't see color is a form of racism, I immediately changed the way I said it, because I didn't realize that was a form of racism. It's like a covert racism.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mac, tell us about your thing, because you have 2 young boys. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just go ahead. You can talk. Just tell me.
For me, the biggest thing for me is not only having to model for my oldest son how to navigate, how to feel this moment, these times, but also how to navigate them, how to express during this time. It's been said by a great pastor, Dr. R.A. Vernon, who stated he has the feeling to be Martin Luther King, but at the same time, on the inside, Malcolm X is on the inside, wanting to break something, wanting to do something. And that is how I feel. And it's definitely how I felt, or how I feel every time there is a beautiful Black brother or Black American whose life has been senselessly taken. And so as I was sitting in front of the television on the night before last, and my son was watching Oprah's special that she did on where do we go from here, he asked me during the commercials, or right before the commercial segments, why are they showing those small video clips? And so for me, that let me know that his wheels were turning. He was beginning to wonder why this conversation is being had. Why do they keep saying, where do we go from here? And he was saying, well, when are they going to answer the question? That was, his thinking. That was as far as his mind would take him. But it also caused it in weeks. It just struck a nerve with you, where when he asked that, I was wondering the same thing. When are we going to answer the question? And every time something like this happens, it causes me to now think about, how am I going to educate my son about something like this. Thankfully, I have a younger son who doesn't even, all he wants to do is eat and sleep. He's almost 5 months. But on the other hand, he's going to come up and hear about this stuff, and it'll be a part of the history books for him. And so his question will not be the same thing that my oldest son will ask me. His question to me will be, well, what did you do during that time? Or how did you feel about this during this time? And I have to be mindful about that, specifically as it relates to the legacy that I want to leave with my children and my children's children. I need them to understand that just as God asked Adam in the garden after they had ate of the fruit, Adam, where are you? It wasn't a matter of wondering where he was physically. He wanted Adam to realize and come to the realization and think about, consider, where have you fallen from spiritually? And look at where you are now. So where are you? Answer that question. We still aren't there yet, where I felt, man, now I'm not having to see the things that I've read about or heard about, learned about in school. I'm not having to see that. And then as of probably the last 10 years, it's caused me to now have to consider how I'm going to help the school educate, help my wife, who is a teacher, educate my boys on this history that is taking place. So it leaves two feelings on the inside of me.
I will have to ask this question. Do you think we'll see racism end in our lifetime? Do you think that there won't be a separation of races, or no?
No, I don't think so. I'm jumping in. I don't know if you're asking me.
It's
I don't think so. But we're not going to see hunger stop either. We're not going to see abortions stop completely either. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't daggone try. And there's so many different things that anyone can attach themselves to make better in this world. But I think one of the things that makes you attach yourself to fighting this cause is that there's such a need, and it's so huge that you realize there's no way, like, I'm going to fix this, but daggone it, like, if I can help 5 or 10 people just realize like you don't have to live your life this way. I'm talking, from the white community. You asked me the question, have we ever experienced racism? I've been told, I don't know how many times, that I have white guilt by white people because I love black people. Well, I don't care what color you are. I love you, and I see your color too. But yeah, we're not gonna solve it, but that should never be a reason why we don't try.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you said what you just said, sometimes I feel like, because I don't kind of put Paul up in our family a lot because he has his own family, but you remember Paul, Mr. Weeks also taught him. He's actually in the military, and his mom died when he was in 9th grade, and he's since become part of our family. But I don't include him a lot in it because he has his own separate life, and I feel like I'm taking away from his culture if I include him in all these pictures and all these stories on things. But I will say that when I saw George Floyd and saw him dying, I put Paul's face on there, and my heart just broke, and I just wept in tears because all I see was all these young men that I taught that are now growing up and having to face this, and I can't even imagine it. That's why I wanted to have these conversations like this.
Absolutely.
For me, I have my two boys, and both are under 5. So listening to Mac talk about how he interacts with his son and his experience, and listening to Daniel talk about his interaction with his kids is great for me. It's very educational for me, and this is why I'm so happy to be in a conversation like this because, I'm 36, but my kids are younger. And, as you talk about seeing the, couple of the murders on television and stuff, we have to understand that our kids going to be connected to social media now. They're not going to be watching news. So they're going to be getting these things so much faster. So we have to be able to talk to have this conversation even sooner, and um, make it more age appropriate and everything. I saw something on Sesame Street. Sesame Street was talking about racism and going over that, so they reaching those kids. But I think it's important to have that conversation as soon as possible because, as I said, when these murders were taking place on television, I run a lot. I still try to keep fit, so I go outside and and take in the sun and whatever. When that happened to Ahmad Aubrey, the murder,
Mhm.
you know, um, it was very it touched me. It touched me in a different way than it did all the other ones. And I could put myself in that shoes, but also I understand, and my kids going to be sporty too. They're going to be, we're going to go for runs as a family. They probably going to go out for a run to train to keep fit or whatever. And to just think that, you know, something like that could happen to my son, is really important for me that I try to do something now in this day and age so that, as Max said, when his younger son grows up, these questions are going to be raised. What was it about? How did you feel? And what did you do? You know, and these conversations are very important for us to just educate each other and just spread the word. So, Mark, I have this foundation back home in Trinidad and Tobago, and there is systemic racism there too. And I'd love to speak to you after this, but you know, hearing you talk about your interaction and you and Daniel about with your sons just gives me you know, more of the ability to talk with younger boys too. That in impoverished neighborhoods and just around a lot of crime. So um, I really appreciate your guys sharing this valuable information with me, man.
There's something that I want to also bring into something, Daniel, that you said which was really big, and I'm also seeing that question right there. How can we bring people who are ignorant into the conversation? There's so many white folks that need to be re-educated. I think a lot of people need to be re-educated. It's not even just the white folks. It's everybody. And I think a big piece to this too is understanding that the work doesn't stop at one post that you put on Instagram and that's it. You know what I mean? Like this is an ongoing work, and I agree with Daniel when you say that I don't just because we may not see the end of it in our lifetime does not mean that we don't get into the game ourselves. Because to sit indifferently on the couch on the sidelines is just as bad as anybody else who's out there standing against it. And so for each person, what I would say is that to bring those who are not educated about it is to make this a part of a part of your life's work, right? And at the end of the day, the supreme ethic in which we live under, which is love, right? The supreme ethic in everything that we do. And on a micro level, it starts in homes, just like these three gentlemen have kids, but it starts in the homes at a micro level. If we can at the very least start into our homes and allow that to spread from there. I mean, there's a lot that can be learned in the household. And even even for us, just even having this conversation amongst men. I'm a true believer that change now, and this is just a belief that, and it's not making. I don't want to create division or separation between men and women. I do believe that men have a divine responsibility to lead their homes from the jump. And I believe that there has been a lot of homes that have been broken in that regard. And so, it starts in the homes and it spreads from there. At the very least, that's where we can start. But it does. It is a constant effort on a day-to-day basis to live by the supreme ethic of love on a day-to-day basis, every day in, day out. Not just one story, not just one passionate post, not just one kind of boom, I'm out there, I'm angry about the situation. This is what I did about it. I went and I picketed. Great, that's awesome. But what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do the next day? What are you going to do the day after that? Are you going to actually live this out and see it through? And we may see it at the end of our lifetime or not. But just like to Daniel's comment, to sit on the sidelines and not to do anything is just as bad.
Yeah.
So if I could chime in really quickly on the question there, this is a really good question by Kami Kennedy. So when all of this was playing off, what a lot of my friends and I saw a lot of people doing was they were paying attention to what other people were doing, their white friends, and I got a little caught up in it, and I went into one of my groups from one of my past teams, and I just started to go crazy in the group, and I was just like, what's wrong with you guys? I defended you. I would do anything for you. I would never allow anything bad to happen to you. In the field, off the field, it's the same thing. Now, how could you see somebody that is my skin color being killed and murdered so often and not you have a platform to use to influence other people and not use it? That conversation kind of opened up, and what I realize is that a lot of it's not just as the other speaker said, there is not just white people that are racist against black people, right? Black people are racist against black people too, and other cultures are racist against black people. We have to realize that within social media, within television, within movies, within everything, there's a they systemically have placed black people at the lowest, below humanity, where we are animals, where we always cast it as the criminals in movies. We always cast it as the bad. We always dying first. We always doing this too. It's all over. It's all over, right? And what happens with this is you subconsciously are formed. Your mentality is formed towards the black person and towards the black culture, right? Or because you see it on TV and all these little movies and all these little cartoons, little small things here and there. We see it everywhere, and we need to help our friends, the ignorant people. First of all, we have to see it, and we have to see it within ourselves, and we have to notice it in movies. We have to notice it when we watching television. We have to act. We have to question more things, right? And when we are able to see that all over in every look, if you watch all across the board, you could see systemic racism against black people all across the board, man, and it's just so sad. It's so sad. It's so sad, right? So when you open your eyes to that, now you are more educated to have a conversation with somebody. Now that's one step. Now there's another step where There are people that are unwilling to open their eyes, right? That are bent on what they believe and how they feel. Those people, the Bible talk about those people. Do not throw your pearls before swine, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was having lunch with a guy the other day, and he was laughing. He said, "My daddy always told me, don't have a fool with a man in public, because onlookers won't be able to tell the difference." And Proverbs 26 says that we're not even to answer the foolish arguments of fools, or you will become foolish as they are. And to be sure to answer the foolish arguments of fools, do not, because they'll become wise in their own estimation. The question is, how can we bring people who are ignorant into the conversation? You don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. And we have to be willing to move forward without having everybody on board. Anyone in leadership can tell you, you never have anybody on board. And if you wait to get everybody on board before you start doing something, you're going to be waiting a real long time. The people I'm concerned about that I want to get in the conversation are the people who know they're a part of it. Ignorant people, that's what makes them ignorant. And I think that's what we got to understand, is that they don't even realize. Ignorance is much like deception. What makes someone deceived is that they don't know they're deceived. It's not that they've got this great moral compass that's just blinging off and, oh, they know I'm making a poor choice here. No, they have no clue. And ignorance is blindness to the facts, is blindness to the reality of what's going on. So I don't think we get caught up by the naysayers and the people who are ignorant. They're gonna fly their rebel flags. They're gonna say stupid comments. You just ignore them. We can't let. And I will say this: ignorant white people are a tiny minority. They're not the ones I'm concerned about. They're the ones who have the ability to make. The ones I'm concerned about, the ones who have the ability to make change, and they refuse to do it because it's uncomfortable or because they're going to have to give something up. Can I add a quick story real quick, Melissa?
Yep, go right ahead.
I'll go real fast. I want to give you an example. I've worked with young men who have been in legal trouble, like Mac, have been a part of mentoring for a really long time. I had a young man call me, a black young man. He was 18 years old. He calls me from jail. Mr. Weeks, or they call me P-Dub, Pastor Weeks. P-Dub, man, they got me locked up. Why'd you get locked up? Man, I did something stupid. What'd you do? Man, I stole a pair of shoes from Rugged Warehouse. Man, that was dumb. Hey, can you come bail me out? No, I'm not bailing you out. Mr. Weeks, they're trying to charge me with a felony. How much the shoes cost? $25. Man, I got in my car as fast as I could. I go up to the magistrate's office, was talking them out. They told me because he cut an freaking ink tag off of a $25 pair of shoes, he was technically boosting, which is a felony. I said, hold up. I couldn't believe it. You were about to give an 18-year-old young man a felony charge because he cut an ink tag off a $25 pair of shoes. Those are the people I'm worried about. I don't care about the ignorant people. I care about those people who know they can change something up. They know that the police officer that he interacted with, he could have written that up so many different ways. And thank God our community is doing a better job here in Goldsboro with community policing and teaching police officers, you've got some leniency in how you write this stuff up. Let me tell you the end game of this story. I showed up at his appointment with his court-appointed lawyer. His court-appointed lawyer refused to talk to me, even though the young man I was mentoring gave him permission. I looked at him, I said, bro, you are a joke. You are a joke. I called some people I knew in the legal, our community's legal system. Literally, this is all it took. Oh yeah, Mr. Weeks, no problem. We got you. Tell them to come up here tomorrow. We'll have it reduced to a misdemeanor. Now, I am so glad, so thankful that I was able to get that drop. Now this young man has a killer job. He's supporting his family. He's doing right. But why did it take a white guy to step in to get this done? So it's not the ignorant white people that I'm concerned about. Man, they can just be ignorant. They won't know the difference. It's the people that know they have the ability in their hands and in their signature. Those are the people that I'm concerned about.
The ability to give somebody a second chance. Because, I mean, all kids make mistakes regardless of race. It's just, why is a white kid able to get off easier than a black kid?
I had so many brushes with the law as a teenager. I set off a fireworks display in somebody's front yard, and it was funny. Imagine if a black young man did that.
He would have been.
He was trying to torch the house down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mac, do you have anything you want to speak to about that question?
Yeah, I thought about the fact that with those people, like Pastor Week says, it's best that they don't be a part of the conversation. But we have to be mindful when we are communicating with anyone about the matter, the realities that lie for people who, like them, are on the outside looking in. And so, for, like Pastor Weeks also mentioned, where he had the ability to make a call and get the charges dropped for this young black male. My wife and I were having a conversation on the other night about kind of some of the differences in resources that African Americans have as it relates to whites. And we, in many cases, like for myself as a local business owner, there are a lot of resources that I have to stumble upon in a whole lot of research, and it's not easily made accessible to the African American community. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is not only when I looked at the death of George Floyd, did I think about racism as it relates to black people or black males, especially being murdered in the public, but also the knee on the neck that a lot of minorities have. And so, as it's been stated already, it's not just with the African Americans, it's with a lot of minorities. And I respect our president for the role that he has. But at the same time, there are minorities who have had to deal with being labeled immigrants or being outcast by a country that they have been living in for years. And the knee on the neck of the oppressed. When I looked at that video, it also gave me that picture as well. That the knee on the neck of minorities has been on the neck for a long time. And so as a result, you have protests going on, peaceful protests, and then you have a lot of rioting going on because, as Dr. Vernon has also stated, as I mentioned him earlier, that when the heart is broke, the head doesn't work. And so you have people thinking that if I go and just tear down this community, burn it down to the ground, at least I'm going to get someone's attention. But the reality is, the truth is, the attention that you could get the attention by doing a peaceful protest. But also, I was telling my wife, I think differently as it relates to a protest. I think how can we best and most succinctly solve the problem or get to the root of the issue? How can we get in front of the people who have the power to make the decisions, to make the changes that need to be brought about? And so that said, it's a matter of when we're protesting or when we're communicating change needs to happen. We need to, and for example, if we were protesting tonight and we circled our downtown area a couple times, and the people like the mayor or anyone who had power in our local government came out and said, what is it that you want? The thing that has to be made aware to people who are protesting is when someone comes and says, what is it that you need? What is it that you're protesting for? You have our attention. Do you have an answer? Do you have a plan that you're ready to ask them? This is what we would like for you guys to consider implementing, so that we can begin the steps to see change. So that's what I would like to add on that part.
You're so right. I love that. Lisa actually re-quoted it. When the heart is broke, the head doesn't work. And I yeah, that is so true. And thank you for that. And I want to see if you later on will drop in the comments if there's a book or a place that with the pastor that you were discussing,
Yes.
so people can read more about, because I'm actually interested in what this pastor has to say. Because the whole thing, we have to be uncomfortable to have these conversations. But these conversations are necessary to have for everybody to learn from each other, and to learn that even though we may look on the outside differently, on the inside, we're all just the same. We're all moms, or not all moms, because you guys aren't moms, but we're all parents. We're all, yeah, we're all parents. I mean, we all want our kids to grow up and be happy and live healthy lives. And, basically, but a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people don't think that other races have the right to do things. Like, I know my girls get it because they're Hispanic and white. So they're not Hispanic enough for their Hispanic friends, and they're not white enough for their white friends. So they're in the middle. And then my oldest daughter married an Asian guy. So she's like, by the end, but she's hopefully by the end, when they have kids, that they won't even be able to tell who they are. And that's her dream of a world that we live in, that they won't be able to tell the races at all. That is all going to be intermixed, and we're all going to live happy. Now, that's like a pipe dream for her, but that's her dream. So, what resources, what are some of the conversations that you want people to know that, we're all the same? Like our win.
Well, can I jump in there with that question?
Yeah.
It's kind of really synonymously stating exactly what Mac already said, that Dr. Vernon says, when the heart is broke, the head doesn't work. It's just said in a different way. But usually when conversations matter the most is when we are at our worst. And so there's a book, I think, we can, first of all, we don't know how to talk. We don't know how to disagree. Our country is so polarized between Democratic or Republic. If I voted for Trump, then that must mean I'm a racist. Or if I voted Democratic, then I love killing babies. It's so we're presented with so many fool's choices. There's like, well, hold on, I don't agree with anything you're saying. So first of all, I'd say a good resource is a book called Crucial Conversations. And it's about mentally, emotionally, and even physiologically, what starts happening in our bodies when somebody says something that just really flares us up. How do I have a sensible conversation with a person that I passionately disagree with? That's one good resource, Crucial Conversations. There's another good book called The New Jim Crow. And honestly, this is just show you Mac and the church.
I think we might have lost Daniel.
What was that quote you said? When conversations matter the most?
When the heart is broke and the head doesn't work.
And he said one about conversations about.
It's Crucial Conversations.
Sorry?
Crucial Conversations.
Yeah, he said crucial conversations. There's a saying that he said.
Yeah, we kind of lost him for there a minute. I don't know what happened. He's kind of frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Max, do you want to add any resources or anything?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I would definitely agree with Pastor Daniel Weeks in The book, The New Jim Crow, is actually one of the books that I have here in my personal library. Also, there is, and I think this was what Pastor Daniel Weeks was getting ready to speak to, and that's for those who in the church world where there's a book that my pastor is walking our church through virtually on Tuesday nights, the City Church of Goldsboro. It's live on social media platforms, but he's walking us through Woke Church. Woke Church. And this is by a beautiful brother who prides himself in the arena of civil rights and social justice. His name is, forgive me, escaping me at the moment, but he is calling us to the carpet on dealing with, handling, and communicating these sensitive conversations like we're having now, so that we won't have to concern ourselves with, like the comment was earlier, the ignorant. We can continue to have a conversation, have it sensibly with one another, even those who see differently, or have a different outlook on things than we do. So that those would definitely be books or resources that I would say would be helpful during this time for people to jump into and share with others.
Yeah. So Daniel, do you want to go back and do your? I actually called you Daniel that time. I can't believe I actually got used to it. You got cut off to share.
Well, I don't know where I cut off, but crucial conversations, I think, is good. It'll just help you with your spouse.
What was that quote again, Pastor?
Just when the conversation matters the most is usually when we're at our worst. And
I love that.
And I guess the reason I related it with Dr. Vernon's quote was that most of the time, the situations we're in dictate like our emotional response, and we have to be willing to realize what's happening like physiologically in us when someone pisses us off or says something that really rubs us the wrong way, and just slow down and just have a civil conversation. I said the new Jim Crow. Honestly, if you're a white person watching this and you don't think systemic racism is real, I would ask you what books that you've read about it, and chances are you probably got your opinion from the Washington Inquirer Chronicles or some bogus news media. Read a book. The new Jim Crow is a really good book to read. It's about actual cases. It's written from a lawyer's perspective. I think Matt already said woke church. For people who keep telling you to preach Jesus when you're talking about systemic racism, great explanation on how this is preaching Jesus when you care about justice. If you don't care about justice, then you don't understand the gospel. Point blank. And I would just, and I'm going to shut up, but I'd say like this guy McMurray and the church he's a part of, they're honestly, that group of guys, they're my number one resource. That's who I got. James Jones told me to read The New Jim Crow. Pastor Terry Jones, Lady Juliet Jones, they told me to read Woke Church. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Every time one of these things happen, I'm either hitting up Pastor Terry's phone or he's hitting me up. And we have some very difficult conversations. I would just put it that way. They're very difficult. It's like I ask him, even though I don't necessarily agree with all white people's perspective, I try to ask him the questions I think white people are wanting to know. And then he comes and he fires back at me too. So, yeah, I think the greatest resource we can have, books are great, but, talking to someone that doesn't have the same skin color you, doesn't come where you come from, man, that's the greatest resource.
That's the reason why I wanted to give the male version of. I had the female version. And it went so great, and that night I was like, "That's only part of the story." And this is still only part of the story, because when you start about biracial, so that's like that popped in my head. I'm like, okay, I've got to do that now, because then they're getting racism for both sides as well. And I thank you guys so much for being on it and agreeing to, especially with Mac. I'm gonna have to do Mac, because I've never met Mac. He didn't know me in person, so he didn't know what he was walking into. He just took a leap of faith with his wife saying, "Colin told you, you're gonna do it." You know,
Smart man.
So, is there any like popular? We talked about popular music and popular movies that maybe you have seen that actually define what racism is, and the way you can learn about it instead of, glorifying it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. The movie that first comes to mind for me is because we just recently watched it, and that was Just Mercy with Jamie Foxx. A great conversation can be taken or had as a result of watching that movie. I would honestly say that a lot of what the feelings that were communicated during that movie are a lot of the thoughts that a lot of Black America has. And it causes us to not only see it in film on our television, but it now puts into forefront of those who are uneducated on the matter. They can now see this is what's really happening. And so even though that movie was, I guess the time frame for it was based in older times, but it's a reality for those of us who are Black and brown right now, in many different ways. And so for me, I have to remember and remind myself, as we were talking about the ignorant earlier, I have to remind myself, I was taught years ago that the Bible speaks, there's a scripture that speaks, and it says, the poor you will have with you always. And I was taught that that doesn't necessarily only mean financially. It also means those who are poor in morals, poor in character, and poor in spirit. People who would never be able to grasp what it is that you and I are trying to get everyone to understand now. That this injustice is George Floyd is not. We haven't made him a hero. We are looking at the way that he died and using that as a platform to let people know that this is happening too much, way too much. And we and a lot of you, thank you guys for communicating your feelings that you have alongside of ours. But a lot of people saw that and were feeling this is enough. Hence, now you have all the protests, and which led to a lot of rioting and those things. But as Pastor Daniel Weeks said, the best resource is those people who don't look like you, because we live it in experiencing overt and covert racism. That outwardly is the overt, where people we can look at them. I used to be a custodian, and now I'm a public speaker, but also a mental health practitioner. I used to be asked the question, well, what do you do now? And when I would say, hey, I'm a custodian, there will be a certain look, and as a result of that, I will be treated a certain way. But now, as a result of saying, hey, I'm a public speaker or I'm a mental health practitioner, I'm the same guy. I've just gotten older. But people, tend to treat the title a little bit differently. They treat me differently as a result of a different title or different career field. And so one of the things that I speak a lot about when traveling to speak, and I coined this quote, most people are awestruck by popularity, but blinded by conformity. And so we find in our society that people choose to go along with everyone else or the majority, when only thing they have to do is like what Pastor Weeks said, is come to one of us and ask the real questions, like Pastor Weeks says he does. Ask the real questions, have a conversation to better understand and then act on it. It's not enough to feel sorry for us or the Black community now and say I apologize, and then the moment is gone 2 or 3 months later. It it makes more impact when you let us know you feel it and you try to understand it, and then as a result, you along with us try to work towards changing it. And that is the biggest thing that I want to leave as a last piece of wisdom for anybody who's listening.
I will say Just Mercy is actually streaming free right now, so you guys don't have to do anything. If you have Netflix, Amazon Prime, another good one that's also streaming is Selma. That's an eye opener with the march on Selma for the voting rights. That's just, I would have never thought that white people could be that mean. I mean, I guess that opened my eyes a lot. That these people weren't doing anything wrong going across the bridge, and all of a sudden they're being beaten with clubs that have spikes on them. And I was just crying. Tears were just pouring out. So I can't even imagine.
Well, when we first got on here, Mac, I don't think Julius, I don't know if you're on here either. I told you guys, I got diagnosed with the coronavirus today. Real thing, man. Real story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got the Rona. And yeah.
So
and it's like stuff is like kind of real until you know somebody who has it. And so I think movies are great, don't get me wrong, but I mean, we were having a conversation at our church, and by the way, we're doing something, but we need to do more, and we will do more. But we had a racial roundtable discussion, and a lady was telling me she remembers as a child the police just busting the door down to her apartment and just flying in there. She said scared the mess out of her as a child. And to this day, when she sees a man in uniform, she struggles not to shake. Had a lady in her 70s, a Black woman in our church, telling me, she said, I was on the other end of that water hose. And when these are people that you do life with, you love, you can't say, oh, that's just the media. That's why I think it really matters to, if you're going to post, you're going to have a strong social media game and talk about all this stuff that, you want to do, and I can't breathe, like, go make a friend with somebody who don't have the same skin color as you and actually learn from real life experience. Look into their eyes when they tell you what they feel. And it's so easy to hide behind a computer screen and write this dumb stuff on. So I'm leaving my comment with this. I told you what the best source is. I think the worst source that you can have is social media. It sucks when it comes to understanding and discussing. Like, this is a great forum because this is a conversation. But man, people, they post false stuff. They get to post their opinions and then say, I'm gonna delete you if you don't agree. I'm gonna block you. It's just having a conversation with someone, to me, is the best way to really learn and understand. I'm shutting up. Sorry.
Julius, do you have any last thoughts to leave us with?
My last thoughts would be just do research, right? everyone needs to do research. Even the person that knows, do more. Learn about American history, learn about systemic racism, learn about how it affects one specific, ethnicity throughout their whole entire life. Let's start from immunization all the way to retirement, all the way to dying. You're systemically, right, pressed down, right? Let's try to learn about that, actively pursue it, so that you could be able to understand it and teach the next generation. As Daniel said, ignorant people are ignorant for a reason, right? Let's try to go forward together and affect change in our circles. And that's how I feel about it. Most importantly, the younger generation, because they're gonna be making the laws, man. They're gonna be taking care of things when we get older. So we had to start to try to pay it forward and go back into the roots and affect the kids. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me, Melissa. For all the people I was messaging here, Jerry,
This is
Lisa.
probably the most I've had conversations on these comments, guys. So you guys did awesome. I mean, I was really nervous about, because you guys are actually the first guys on Chats from the Blog Cabin, and I
Right.
was like really nervous going into it, and I was like doing worship songs and everything else because I was like really nervous. I don't say the wrong thing and stuff like that.
Right.
I
You
want
do great. You're a great
You did
facilitator.
great. Thanks for
Absolutely.
having us.
I
Absolutely. We're
actually would
grateful
like
for
to
you.
invite
We
any of
love
you
for you.
guys, if you ever want to come back on and continue this conversation, because it's a conversation that needs to be had again and again and again. And it's like what Mr. Weeks said. See, I went back to call you Mr. Weeks. Is that social media needs to be used for good, and that's my platform is social media. My
Yeah.
platform is blogging and being able to reach people from all across the country. So that's the reason why I wanted to come on and do something. This is how I'm making the change, because I'm so just a little part of the wheel of a person that thinks differently. I think like you guys are doing tonight. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. Like I said, you guys are more than welcome to come back anytime. I would love to have all you on separately or together again. If you guys want to make an appointment, let me know. Have these conversations, keep it rolling. And guys, any other questions? Any last thoughts before we go off there?
I first want to say I would love to come back and have any conversation, as long as these guys, my other teammates, they're sharper than me. As long as they will let me come back.
You sound like Pastor Terry right now. That was like classic Pastor Terry Jones right there.
Melissa, I would love to have these guys' contact information too. I feel like if there's a lot of knowledge that I could gain to help me go forward with my life and to be a better person, and also with my foundation back home to flow that knowledge and information back.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa, feel free to just forward him my email address.
Okay.
Same here.
Well, I think
Yes,
you
ma'am.
guys since you guys the email, everybody got email address in there.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody has an email.
Okay. Excellent.
I would, like I said, I would let you guys come back on individually or separately. It's up to you, because I know you guys have some great programs going on outside of this conversation that we didn't even touch on. Guys, thank you so much, and everybody else, have a great rest of your Thursday. I'm so glad you joined us for the conversation.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.